I think it's really important to niche, right? Because when we're competing with everyone, it makes us a little bit more of a commodity. I didn't want to be a commodity. And that's why it's really important for me to niche. Honestly, I don't think that it came from some type of, incredible business acumen at the time when I was looking to transition into some type of real estate investing. I thought to myself, well, how do I make these dollars stretch as far as possible? And so what I found was luxury short-term rental was it. It allowed me to niche. It allowed me to really stand apart. And then the revenue, oh my goodness, it was incredible compared to, any of the other methodologies. So
who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today, I have such the pleasure of having a guest here that is super overdue. And that is Rachel Gainsbrugh. What is going on, girl? Welcome to the lab. How you doing today?
oh my goodness, Ruben, thank you so much for having me. I know we've been trying to coordinate this for a minute, I just so appreciate us finally being able to connect for sure. You are a superhero in this space, and I totally look up to everything that you're doing and so appreciate the content that you're providing for this community. Oh my goodness, just so much value. You taking the time out, carving out this time to share behind the scenes of how we're doing what we're doing, how you're doing what you're doing, fully transparent. So I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here and having me. It's such an honor.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Rachel, you know this. We were talking offline. We always talk offline, and I can't thank you enough. How you're so resourceful. It's just incredible. And I really want to give credit where credit is due. I want to give our listeners some context here because you guys know Experiment Nation. We are here to just have individuals like Rachel, who is a true practitioner, step into our lab to share her experiments. And so I had first discovered you on shout out to Short Term Rental Secrets podcast, Michael Shogren. You guys know how much I show love to Michael Shogren, and again, so many of us here, we rub shoulders together and we help each other in the industry. And I listened to Rachel, and she had, she has properties in Georgia, Florida, and she was talking about this unique concept, which, within the niche of short-term rentals, there's already some kind of community, but you've taken a level deeper, and I'm just so excited to talk about it. So first, when I heard you, I was like, I reached out to you and things slipped through the cracks. Then you discovered it. You're like, oh my God, Ruben, like we have to connect. And then, between that time, you still offered so much value. I mean, you offered so much value in that episode. So I really just want to level set here that, if you don't have a notepad out, or you don't have something to write on, or if you're driving, listening to this, it's okay. It's recorded. You listen to it over and over again, and you will be sure to definitely tune into this again, because I certainly will, because you are just a wealth of knowledge, and you just do it so in such a charismatic, easy going way, and it's just so remarkable. So let me give you some context. I needed to lay out that red carpet for you, Rachel, because you deserve this introduction, and because that was definitely from the bottom of my heart, and I really do appreciate you being here. And we know how crazy our schedules have been, but you are here with us today. Now, Rachel, for the people tuning in, whether they're listening or seeing you here on camera, you come from a unique background. I mean, you're just, you just finished wrapping up being a pharmacist, which is not an easy career to have, certainly challenging. But while you were doing that, you've been bouncing from anywhere from 18 short-term rentals to then 20 to 22, then back down to short-term rentals to about 18. And what's really interesting, what's unique about you actually believe that less is more, as I do myself, but 18 is not a small number either. And you're doing it in multiple markets. You have a team, and you've been able to do this while being within a career, a very respectable career. So I want all of y'all to just throw all the excuses out the window and sit in here and just tune in for a second. And I do want to level set. I'm not done. It's going to be a long-winded one. You've owned, managed rental arbitrage. I mean, you guys know we've talked about these as in the lab. You were part of the actually one of your properties, I believe, and I don't know if we can disclose this now, but there was some Netflix kind of, shenanigans going on there where you even got, you couldn't disclose it at the time, but hopefully we can get it out of you today, or maybe not. We'll have to wait. But you've been featured on Bigger Pockets. You and I both know where we got some interesting project at this time. It's April. We're going to be a co-author of the Hospitable Hosts, which will have that date to be disclosed very, very soon. And you're just in the industry. You crushed it in Clubhouse. People love you. And this is why you're here today. This is why I hunted you down. This is why I was very patient. And this is why I'm super grateful to have you here with us. So welcome, Rachel. Welcome.
Oh my goodness, Ruben. I'm looking around to see who is this amazing person you're talking about. Oh my goodness. I am just so grateful to be here with you. And you, Ruben, you yourself, you've had a lot of the members of my community on your podcast, different short-term rental hosts, different operators that really have set themselves apart in their specialty and what they do. And I think it's really important to niche, right? Because when we're competing with everyone, it makes us a little bit more of a commodity. I didn't want to be a commodity. And that's why it's really important for me to niche. Honestly, I don't think that it came from some type of, incredible business acumen at the time when I was looking to transition into some type of real estate investing. I thought to myself, well, how do I make these dollars stretch as far as possible? And so what I found was luxury short-term rental was it. It allowed me to niche. It allowed me to really stand apart. And then the revenue, oh my goodness, it was incredible compared to, any of the other methodologies. So that's really why I started there. I just wanted one, and I wanted one to really, pay off. And, being a busy pharmacist, it's a very intense position. Being a busy mom of 2 boys, I have a whole husband, 3 dogs, all of the things.
3 dogs. Jeez.
So seriously, I said to myself, how do I make these dollars stretch as far as possible? How do I make my time stretch as far as possible? And that's where I came up with the concept, really. How do I own and operate the fewest number of properties that generates the highest profitability?
Reason why I love that, Rachel, and I pay very close attention when I have people like you in the lab, of how you speak, because I think it's very clear. You're very, conscientious of where you're going, of, the decisions that you make, and strategic. So you said, I wanted to set myself apart, which, and you also talked about you wanted to stretch, your time as much as possible, right? To see, and one thing that I think of, and I think we should appreciate, is we've had multiple short-term rental guests from our community come on here. But what I really like about your niche is, I sit with myself and I think about this all the time, is how can I do the exact same amount of effort and get more out of it, right? And what I love about, the luxury short-term rental market is that for maybe an established short-term rental host or owner, right, whatever the case might be, depending on your model, you may be doing the exact same actions that someone is doing with the right property, with the right location, and get perhaps quadruple the amount that you would make in profit, right? Keyword profit, versus someone else who's doing the exact same thing. They've set up their systems, they've done what they needed to do, but they're just not squeezing as much juice from the fruit. So let's talk about the two differences here, because when you talk luxury, it's a product of its own marketplace. What makes a property a luxury property to begin with, so we can level set? And you and I were talking about level setting. The difference between two things is, long-term rentals before and short-term rentals. So in this case, what is a regular short-term rental versus a luxury short-term rental? What makes it a luxury short-term rental?
So what I absolutely love about the modern luxury traveler is that modern luxury is not going to be the same as traditional luxury, okay? So traditional luxury, back in the days when our parents or our great-grands would appreciate those golden doorknobs, the golden toilet, all of that razzmatazz and pizzazz was really what defined luxury. But modern luxury, guys, is so attainable. It's so different. What is considered luxury right now is convenience, is connection. We have individuals who are looking to reconnect with one another. They're looking to reconnect with nature. Okay. And so there are definitely different aspects that you could add to the property to make it a little bit more luxurious. But if you can curate an environment where the communication is top notch, where you're curating an environment that they connect with one another, they can connect with nature, they can live like a local, have an authentic experience, you are on the precipice of a luxury rental. So if we want to talk, we're in the lab, so we're going to talk logistics.
Yep.
If we want to talk logistics, yes, as you drive through a particular venue or community or resort or a property, there are things that would preclude a property from being luxury. Like if I'm going down to Miami to visit my parents back where I grew up in an area that is a little bit more, it was struggling, and where all the people are coming out of their houses to look into the car, say, who's there? I was like, it's me, Rachel, I'm back in town. That's not going to be a luxury feel, right? That neighborhood where the houses are run down, you have people just sitting out on the lawn, that is not necessarily going to be a luxury feel. But if you are driving through a neighborhood and the properties are well manicured, they're taken care of, you do not have vehicles on the lawn, you can start to really, it's not extremely difficult to curate a luxury feel, because it starts with the communication. As soon as the guest looks to book that property, how expedient is your communication? What is your tone? What are the questions you're asking? Are you mindful of the reason they're there? And then do you change your tone based on the reason? If they're there to, celebrate someone's homecoming, funeral, for instance, homegoing, are you going to change your tone to reflect that you're a person and that they're a person, you care about the reason they're there? Or if they're there for a wedding, is your tone going to reflect a celebratory tone? Because for that individual, or if they're there for vacation, right? Because there are a number of reasons travelers travel to an area. So the communication is exactly where we start. So for me, if I could put it, and I think I'm going to coin it right here, right now. I have maybe the 3 C's, right, Ruben? Communication, connection, right? Convenience. Those are the 3 C's: communication, connection, convenience. So as they're traveling to the property, it's, for the luxury traveler, it is no longer all about the destination. It's that journey. What did you offer them during that communication? Did you offer them special amenities, events that are happening in that area? Did you communicate that with them? Right? Did you communicate? You may have a spa that just opened and it's getting rave reviews. Did you communicate if they love barbecue or if they love Chinese food? Here are some of the best places. So that's the communication piece. Again, it is that journey, not necessarily the destination. And already during that journey, during that communication, you are curating a luxury stay. And so that's what I would define as a luxury, an opportunity to have a luxury stay. It is that communication. A standard stay, of course, you want the space to be kind of clean, a little bit of back and forth communication, just cut and dry, that's going to be standard. But if we're going to go a little bit above, we can provide that luxury. But there's one more category we haven't covered, Ruben, that I do dabble in. Some of our properties are in that ultra luxury segment there. And that is where we are coordinating private chef, private pilots, and so on and so forth. That's ultra luxury. But I would say the middle ground, a lot of us can participate in that luxury accommodation that is in that middle ground, because the communication is where it all starts. And if you have something in your budget that you can send to the property, whether it's condolence flowers or wedding flowers or some chocolates, these are some of the things that definitely can provide that luxurious feel as the individual travels to the property. And we can go into the different things that we put into our property as well, Ruben, whenever you're ready. But I really don't want to skip over the communication piece, because I think that is low-hanging fruit and we can definitely start there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm so happy you took it there, because, you asked a question and then with your experience, you answer it from the foundation. And that's just so great, because you might, someone listening, may see that, I'll ask that question and we just go directly about how the property should look and what you should have in it. But you didn't start there. You went back to the lowest hanging fruit, which I love, because each and every single listener here or whoever's watching the show can actually do themselves But then it's very interesting because it kind of tells us how it's a little bit deeper than what you might think is luxury, because it is about how you communicate. It is about how you actually bring the entire experience full circle. So thank you for highlighting that. And as as you were saying that, there were so many thoughts that were coming to mind, Rachel, because I'm thinking like, a lot of us are like, oh, passive business, passive income, etc. And you talked about sending flowers, which I think is so important because, I think there's a gentleman in our network who actually talked about this. I think it's Bill, who literally goes above and beyond. I'm talking about videos. I'm talking about, and this is why it makes sense now when you talk about, less is more, right? We're not talking about having 100 average units here. We're talking about how can we really give a prime, experience, like a VIP feel, and go above and beyond and be in that top percentile, which is what I'm hearing already, right? I didn't hear of a turn on button for, maybe what I do hear is there's systems involved with that, right? But let's go back to the communication for a second, right? Because I think that's so important. So lowest hanging fruit, you think we can all begin. What does the communication look like? Is it, is it before they even set foot on the property? Is it during their first, interaction, like the day of? Is it even after? Like, I would love to hear what a luxury kind of workflow sounds like, and maybe compare it to maybe an average one, because I think that'll give people some real context, and maybe they'll be able to see in their blind spots, oh my God, I can't believe I'm not doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I love that you talk about systems. This is something we go back and forth about. I feel as though my systems are pretty dialed in for the short-term rentals, but for all the other aspects of my life, I count on you, Ruben. I say, Ruben, how do I repurpose such and such? Because my systems are not there. So when I started to curate and to communicate with my guests, what I essentially was able to create is a standard operating procedure, my SOPs, right? And so a lot of that guest communication can be placed in a database where my team can then utilize it either to help me with a lot of the automation. Some things can be automated, and other things we can then copy and paste and tweak to that particular guest or whatever, to address whatever may be going on. And we actually call our communication guide the Roll Out the Red Carpet Guest Communication Guide for 5-star reviews. Like they know to
so
have you looked at the Roll Out the
that.
Red Carpet? Yeah, because let's set the tone. We're rolling out the red carpet for these guests. And so that is what it is called, roll out the red carpet, guest communication, because that's where it starts, right? Communication starts with for sure. And you know what? I said that's where it starts, but let's be honest, a guest is not going to click on your listing unless your pictures are compelling, the copywriting on the page, all of that. Yes, that has to be in place, right? So let's not skip over that. But I know your listeners, they've been in your lab, so they already know they can't come in with like just dark end iPhone pictures that their cousins took. They know that to take professional pictures and make sure that the listing is up to par. But as soon as that guest goes and hits that inquire button and they have questions, definitely addressing the questions is going to be important. And let me be honest with that. I have seen a host who has their script, their team has their script. The guest is asking about something in particular. The host or the team, they just respond, come and stay with us. We know you love to stay. And then they'll go through their spiel. But the guest asks you a question. I don't know if you've seen that before.
Oh my gosh.
And so they just go through their, they go through their script almost like
robots,
clockwork, like robots, right? And so you want to make that guest feel that they're going to be listened to, because that already informs them, oh, this is something automated, they're not even listening to me, right? And that's already a bad precedent that you're setting. So if you have a team, let your team know when a guest asks a question, really directly respond to that question, and then they can piggyback that with their, their standard, greeting. But start off with answering that question first. I would highly recommend that. I've seen it done the other way multiple times, and it's something that's obvious to us as we're speaking right now. But if you, take a step back, you'll see that you want to make sure that your team is doing that correctly. So
Yeah.
For me, first of all, is being very attentive, understanding what the purpose of that visit is. And if that guest goes ahead and requests to book, or if they book, we do have a standard automated response for that guest, letting them know that we are really happy that they've selected us, to book with us. And we have a few questions that we ask, nothing too pressing per se, but we want to understand the reason for their visit, and we frame it around to make sure they have a phenomenal stay. We just want to make sure that everything's in place, something
Mm.
along those lines. Okay.
So
And
this is
then,
after
so
the inquiry or after a booking?
this is after they book.
Interesting. So that
Mhm.
is great right there, because I don't think so many people are doing that. It's more like, the booking is like the climax. Okay, we got the booking, we're good, we got the client, right?
Mhm.
You're taking it a step further where you get the client and you're like, okay, how can I even make sure that this experience is really truly going to be out of this world for this client? So you're getting questions. And the reason I say that, I think some people ask questions to before they make the booking official, and then they're good, right? They're like, okay, the booking's done, but you're taking it upon, a whole nother level where you're saying, hey, the booking has been booked. Now, how can we make it a great experience? Okay, so what are some of the questions that you may ask someone to make sure that they're going to receive the experience that they're, I guess, anticipating?
Yeah, along the lines of who's traveling with them. I want to know
Mhm.
if there are kiddos, if there are pets, because we are pet friendly. That's something we rolled out, I want to say early 2020, because we're getting a lot of inquiries from our luxury travelers who wanted to travel with pets. Initially, we were not pet friendly,
Yeah.
but when we did the research as far as how much it would cost to board a pet, right? You looked at those numbers, they're like, hey, wait a second, we're leaving a lot of money on the table when you have a
Mm.
lot of guests asking for the same thing over and over and over again. You got to listen to that for a moment. You got to say, okay, take a step back. They're all asking about this particular amenity. Is this something that we really can't accommodate? And so you roll it out to one and you recognize, wow, this is working out well, and you roll it out to multiple. So definitely be open-minded about what they're asking about. And so we want to know who's traveling. We want to know the purpose of their travel, if they've been to the area, something just very lighthearted. And if it's a traveler that's coming there for, say, we do have a big filming industry, or if it's a traveler that's coming to see family, or if it's a traveler that's never been to the area, we let them know that, if there's something going on in the area, some concerts, we may plug those in. If there's a tournament of some sort that may be of interest, we plug those in. Or if there's a new restaurant that's getting rave reviews, we may take the opportunity to plug that in as well, because we love to support our local activities, our local
Sure.
small businesses, and just definitely refer them to those types of things that are going on. And we let them know as the time gets a little bit closer, they will receive their check-in information. And if there's anything that we can do to, make their stay phenomenal, just let us know. And just leave it, open at that point, and just wait for them to then, communicate with us and let us know if there's something that they need. Some have requested golf cart rentals, and it's something that we're happy to connect them with the company that accommodates that with, a little bit of a bonus, a discount. Or some
Yes.
have asked about grocery delivery if they're coming in late at night. And so
Wow.
we've been able to accommodate that as well, like basic breakfast items, so that they can have that in the morning before a tournament. We have some horse, what do you call it? Like they jump the fences.
Oh,
You know
like,
what I'm talking about,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Not
Yeah, so
horseback
that
riding.
kind
Is
of,
it horseback riding?
yes, horseback riding, and then they
Yeah.
jump over the fence, some kind of competition, or tennis competition. And so some of our grocery stores, they tend to close in some of these markets a little bit early. And if your guest is coming late night, if you're not offering a breakfast option, you may want to have that available as an option for a delivery with a little bit of upcharge, some basic breakfast items, so that they can have something first thing in the morning, and then they can get their,
Mm.
groceries for the remainder of the stay.
Okay, this is really interesting, because these are all things that, like, I don't think your average, short, and this, again, this is why this is luxury. I don't think your average host is doing. So it's bringing a lot of light to this. I'm curious, when you talk about events coming up or certain things, what does that look like? Because we talked about you having multiple properties. We talked about you having your own career. So when you're setting that up, are you teaching someone how they can actually have this research, or are you providing more checklists of, hey, these are the new restaurants that are coming up in for this quarter? Like, I'm just trying to find a way, how do you do something repeatable and scalable, but still make it unique as well? What does the back end look like? Because I'm sure that's what people are thinking, like, well, how am I going to know if something new is popping up? So does that mean you're doing that, or does that mean you're teaching someone on how to periodically do a quick maybe search of what's going on in the area? Could you help us out with the team component aspect of how that's done?
Yeah, absolutely. So at first, when I first was starting out, the team was me, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why for me it was really important. I really wanted to create a stay that was unique, a stay that the guests perhaps had never experienced before.
Right. I could see
Right.
that being very
Right.
true.
And
Not
that's because my
experiencing.
prices are perhaps something they had never seen before either. So my nightly rates
Mm,
are quite high. And so how do you pile on the value, right? So I had to ask
mm,
myself, I am charging a premium to stay in our spaces, but how do I also pile on the value so that the guests can see, and they speak about all the special touches. We get local honey sent in honey
mm.
sticks. I mean, so we pile on the value so they do see it. And so for me, it was me finding the 2 or 3 sites that consistently posted the what's going on in the area. And so creating, for me, it's creating those Loom videos to train my team. So here's how you do this. You look at this site, you look at that site, and you plug in the event for that month. And the great thing that I've been noticing, because I've only been in business since 2019, not too long, a lot of these events, they repeat themselves, right? So we know always, the jazz festival happens always this month, and if they want to validate that and double check that, here's where we can do it. And so our concierge team, that's part of their task, is to look, every week, once a week, to take a look at that, to see what are the events that are going on for that month. And so what's great about having a team, especially a short-term rental team, they're not communicating with guests around the clock, right? So during their downtime, the in-between time, you can assign someone just asked, well, what would I do with the virtual assistants? It would be, you wouldn't believe, how much they can take off of your plate. These are things you can assign to them. They can
Yeah.
be essentially your integrator, the person who executes, the things that you wish you could do, the things that you wish you had, time to do. And so just definitely create, I created a spreadsheet of the tasks or any edits or updates that I wanted to make to the guest communication, any edits that I wanted to make to whether it's our tool stack or do I want to try out a new tool, a new piece of technology. I let my virtual assistant concierge team know, and so they'll arrange those calls. I'll sit in the back like a student, and they're taking notes to see how they can help me implement those things. That's where I'm at now. So I'm so fortunate now. But prior to that, it was all me. I was, the
Yeah,
cleaning lady and the CEO. Seriously.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's good that you, wow, I mean, it's so crazy. It's good that you wearing those hats, because you understand the amount of capacity or amount of time things take. And I always say, I think sometimes we're so quick to try to, automate so quickly, or which again, there is definitely a place for it. But there's also some magic in, doing it yourself first before, you start outsourcing too quickly. So let's speak about the outsource for a second. You and I were geeking out about the recent, episode that I had, and we talked about
Yeah.
virtual assistant, and we had the founder of onlinejobs.ph, which has been a great, wonderful resource that I've used in my years in my multiple businesses. As far as you talk about your concierge, which I love, the term with your VAs. What does that look like? Is that around the clock, for any message that comes in are ready to go, or do they kind of depend on some automations, and then there is still enough time to come in and answer things as they come, when they come during their shift? Like, I'm just trying to understand maybe the dynamics of how one could set up a concierge team that's always readily available. And then again, you talk about having them access to tool stacks and SOPs to then provide it when the question comes. So let's talk about their schedule for a second. Is this someone that would work around the clock? Do they cover for each other? Is there some gaps that remain open? How do you structure that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So for those who are just starting off, and the way I did it when I was
Mhm.
just starting off, I split the hours of the day with the virtual assistants. So
Smart,
if you're starting,
very
it's
smart.
just you, your daytime hours. A lot of times, my specialists who are overseas, their hours are flipped compared to my hours. So their daytime hours are my nighttime, and my nighttime are daytime. So they would cover me, during my nighttime hours, and I would cover during the daytime. And I think that's a really good model starting off, because you want to set the tone. If we're going back to communications again, we can talk about communications all day, I think, but you want to set the tone for the way you want your business to be portrayed by your
Mm,
guests. And once you do it yourself, for a good amount of time, several conversations again and again, you can then set that tone. You don't want anyone taking over the communications until you have quite a bit of that, spelt out and built out. And that's as simple as, copying and pasting from your inbox of all of the conversations you've had. And
mhm.
congratulations, my friend, you have an SOP. So it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel. Some of those same questions are, being asked again and again, and that can be utilized. So be really mindful as you're responding to those guests, and take that time to put that work in the beginning, because it will pay you dividends later on, because your virtual assistants can then leverage, those conversations to continue utilizing your tone to speak with guests. But as the time, progressed, we added on another virtual assistant. And so at that point, we still were not necessarily at 24 hours. I wouldn't say after hours was anywhere from midnight to 6 a.m. So that was still a little bit of a gap at times. And then eventually we added someone during that time when we got to, I want to say number 11 or so, property number 11, then we added, 24-hour concierge service, so that if even in the middle of the night there was a question, we would have someone to cover that shift. So one person in the middle of the night, for our properties, and two other individuals during the day, just kind of navigating not only the triage questions from the guests, but any issues that may arise, coordinating with cleaners, if whether or not there is a early check-in, late checkout, those types
Yeah.
of things that required coordination. So one of our concierge managers, she actually takes care of speaking with the cleaning manager to
Yep.
coordinate, some of those days.
Yeah, no, that's key. And honestly, that I'm so glad you said that. Even like late checkout, like that's one of the things that, depending, hey, you might be able to serve someone and give them that VIP feel by making some of these changes that maybe are hard
Mhm.
rules that they can't get at other places like hotels or whatever the case might be. So I
Yeah.
really like that. I loved what you said about, I think sometimes we overthink systems. I think if it's almost like clues, there's clues within things that we've done before. And I love that you said you didn't just say outsource it right away while I'm at work. I'll cover some shifts that I'm still gathering data, I'm still learning the process, and then someone's covering my back. And then as you progress, you're able to kind of step away, but at the same time, you had a very your hands on the processes and the way you were actually tweaking the SOPs over time, which I think is genius. I like giving real tactable advice here in the lab, and I think you're doing such a great job of doing that. So, I mean, we could talk about this for so long, but it's such an interesting topic that, I don't want people to say, Ruben, I can't believe you didn't go into the actual properties themselves. So let's talk about the actual product, right?
Yeah.
What makes a luxury product? We talked about the communication, which I'm so glad you went there because it shows people it's beyond just the product, but people love the product, right? And love
Yeah.
what they see, right? What are some things that you've seen that a luxury must maybe have, or that most luxury properties have, that you see, if someone's listening, they're maybe trying to make that jump, maybe for them to realize, is it even possible with the current property that I have to turn it into luxury, or do I actually need to buy one, or maybe rental arbitrage one? Like, what does that look like? What should I have in my luxury short-term rental field to go ahead and, go along with their communication as well?
Yeah. So when we're talking about luxury, like standard
Mm,
luxury, we are only limited, I think, by our curb appeal. And I'm going to be a little bit contrarian. Some people may not, totally agree. So come for me if you may. It is all good.
You
But
said
it's
come for
the
me. I love that.
but it's the curb appeal. And you'll see, I have an article
Wow.
that's published in Bigger Pockets, my 15 luxury tips that won't break the bank. Definitely check that out. Go through 15. And I'm not going to go through 15 right here.
Yep.
But what I'm telling you is the curb appeal is definitely something that I think will preclude some properties. If you do not have curb appeal, if you are, I explained that example a little bit earlier, if you are in one of those neighborhoods where it's a little bit challenged, there's nothing you can do to the property to market it as a luxury and it be okay. it may, you may think it flies, but you will have guests, and guests are notorious for telling you about yourself. And so they will let you know this was not a luxury feel, even if you, spend hundreds of thousands into the property.
Wow.
If you're driving through that particular neighborhood and it is, a little bit of a distressed and depressed and challenged and not necessarily your property, but the surrounding properties. If that curb appeal isn't there, then I would say the potential to create a luxury feel with that particular property is not going to be very feasible. I'm just going to put it out there. It's not going to be feasible. I look at these properties all the time. I work with a lot of wholesalers and realtors. And as soon as I see something like that, I walk away because I know that to overcome that is going to be extremely challenging. Outside of that, honestly, you can really create a luxury stay. You really can. So if the curb appeal is there, you walk into the property, it's going to be hard surface floors for the most part. We're not going to fill it up with carpet, right? It's going to be natural stone countertops or a very modern butcher block for the kitchen countertops, right? We're looking at stainless steel appliances, whether it's black stainless. I saw the new rose gold stainless steel appliances. Everything needs to be operational. Everything needs to be in great condition. The bathrooms, you want those to look updated. You want those to be updated. But outside of that, from the guest experience, it's going to be that easy check-in. If the guest is arriving in the middle of the night and they're fumbling through lock boxes and they have to call you, that whole luxury feel is gone. Like gone, right? So you want that door, and I know we're all fighting for our lives with these keyless doors these days. I know I was fighting for my life last week. Well, but honestly, if they have a hard time, when a luxury traveler is stepping into the hotel, they expect the bellhop to grab their bags. There are no long lines. They have their room key. They're gone. They want that anonymous, quick check-in. If you cannot provide that, you're already struggling, right? So think of it that way. They don't want long lines. They want that convenient, easy check-in. And that's actually a KPI on multiple of the OTAs. How was check-in? They're asked, how was check-in? Easy. It needs to be easy. The last 4 digits of their phone number, they lock and load it. They put it in, they're in, right?
Yeah.
That is the first impression. How is check-in? And once they arrive, it's really, and I'm going to sound woo-woo, but stick with me, tantalizing all 5 of their senses. What are they smelling when they open the door? What are they seeing? What are they hearing? Right? What snacks do you have for them to taste? And how soft are your linens for them to touch? So think about your 5 senses, because you want all 5 senses to be recognized and to be stimulated in a way that is very, very luxurious and relaxing. Okay. So natural fiber linens are a big deal for me, whether it's cotton or bamboo or something, natural fiber linens. Okay. So anything that touches the guest skin has to be nice, soft, and fluffy. Okay. As it comes to smelling, we don't want, if that property, and I know some of the guests are, breaking our house rules. If it smells like smoke, guess what? Ding, ding, ding. You lost some luxury points, So
and I'm sorry, I gotta just jump in because it's such a good point, Rachel. And I want to just add to it real quick. Smoking, etc. You said you recently got into making it pet friendly. Can we talk about that? Maybe the hair, is that something that you're still allowing, or you've kind of opened up, or maybe experimented with, as we like to say, with in the lab? And what have you put in to maybe mitigate a smell or of dog, or maybe someone has is allergic to dogs. I don't know. Is that something that you found a way now that you've kind of broken into that space of making your spaces pet friendly?
Yeah. So when you're going to implement something that's going to impact any member of your team, you want to make
Mhm.
sure that, that is communicated, they're on board, you work together to create a path forward, and they know that they will be incentivized. So when we became pet friendly, we first alerted the cleaning team. A lot of people are asking for this. We know it's going to put a little bit more of a burden on them because we are going to require a deeper type of clean, but we're charging the guests more for it, and they will be incentivized more for it as well.
Mm,
Okay.
mm,
And so what does that entail? Oh my goodness, the pet hair is serious, And so a few things, it starts off with the guest that is bringing the pet. We do have a pet addendum where we do require the pet gets a topical treatment 72 hours before arriving to the property. And that's part of the contract, because if, we find fleas, they will be fined, and that's part of the fine as well. The part of the
yeah.
pet deposit that we collect, they will be fined if we find fleas, and poor pet, but it is what it is. And it's not something that's easy to mitigate just right away. So that's
Right.
something that we definitely, we take seriously, and we communicate that with the guests, both written and both verbally. But we love pets. We market to the pets, we by name. And when and this is something we're not talking about right now, but when we are looking to let them know we have a few days available next month, when we're marketing directly to our guests, we say, remember how Fufu enjoyed their time here? Bring Fufu
Wow.
back. Oh, they
Wow.
to die for. They die when we name the pets in the
Yeah,
email marketing.
that's like their baby. They're gonna be like, wow, you remember my baby's name.
You remember Fufu.
Wow.
And so I just spilled the tea to your audience here in the lab. Mention the dog's name and you're in.
You're
Right?
done.
Is that is
Yeah.
that luxury, or is that luxury, right? That's part of
Wow.
it, that communication. Start. So going back to that, we utilize a lot of the lint rollers, even on hard surfaces. So one of the last pieces of, and this is something one of my cleaners discovered, she said, I think it'll be helpful. And we're open for innovation. How do we make this better? It'll be helpful to lint roll even the hard surfaces,
Wow.
as we go, just as a last step before, exiting the property. But we
Yeah.
utilize air purifiers. We utilize an ozone machine. The cleanser they start off with open doors, open windows, turning on all the fans to just get that initial, clean going. But they utilize really heavy duty vacuum cleaners that will get the pet hairs not only on the floors, because we do have hard floors. Again, we have hard floors, 1 or 2 rugs, but
Mm.
on the sofas. And we look to utilize sofas that are very easy to clean and to kind of repel pet
Right.
hair. And so those are the things behind the chair where the pets may be under the bed, all the corners, so it is a little bit more of a deeper clean, but they are compensated well for it as well.
Experimentation, I always experiment. And the reason why is I'm always trying to find the best tool, the best method, and the best vehicle to help me get to my end goal. One of the tools that we use in the short-term rental space is Guesty for Hosts. Now, experimentation, you know that I love to test things, and I wouldn't be sharing with you anything that I don't use myself. As a short-term rental superhost, Airbnb superhost, listings that we own and co-host at the same time, I can tell you that there's no better software that allows us to streamline our business. Right now, currently, there's actually 3 properties right now that are currently where guests are checking in, and I'm here with you, and I did not need to send in check-in instructions for these current properties, right? There are multiple ways that you can streamline your operation from on the front end and on the back end, from being able to create a website, from being able to get income reports for your team, to looking at statistics, to setting up auto reviews, to integrating your smart lock so that you don't have to sit here and send every day and remind yourself to send the passcodes for your smart locks. No, instead you can integrate directly the exact same way that you can actually send your cleaners a link so that they don't have to remind themselves when they need to go to cleanings. There's text reminders that go out. There's links that can go out for them. This is a tool that if you're looking to give a smooth experience for your team on the back end, it will truly reflect, and it does for your guests on the front end. Make sure you go to host.guesty.com and use our unique link. Our unique link will be in our bio, in the show notes. If you're currently watching this, you'll see it right here at the bottom of my screen. Use this unique link so that you can tell Guesty that I sent you. You don't want to miss out on this. You need a PMS, property management software, in your business if you're looking to operate like a super host that you deserve to be, so that your guests can have the best experience that they deserve to have at your properties. Again, that host.guesty.com. Use our unique link that is here on the screen, in the bio, and in the show notes if you're listening to this, guys. Happy hosting.
Wow. So, I mean, that's so good, by the way. Like, there's so many gems there. I appreciate the naming of the dog. Communication is key. You've gotten us there. That's wild. So as far as the type of property, because I know you're in from what I recall, you're in Georgia. Shout out to Georgia, or neck of the woods, Florida, which I just came back from Miami, and Fort Lauderdale. Two different feels actually. I stayed at a hotel, then I stayed at a resort, and then I stayed at an Airbnb, and then I stayed at a resort. So it's always great context to kind of like contrast and compare.
Yeah.
In the Poconos, I believe, has anything changed since that, or that's pretty much
and we're building in the in Rosemary Beach in Florida as well.
Okay,
so the Panhandle there. Yeah,
I love that. So speaking of, you said building, super great segue, right? So if I'm trying to get into this space, do you find one model to be better than the other, or more easier on the investor, or the lowest hanging fruit? Like, what do I do? Should I buy one? Should I actually start with rental arbitrage to squeeze as much cash flow as possible, or profit, I should say? Should I co-host? What are you seeing is a good stepping stone? Or maybe you even have some existing SDRs and you're like, you know what, I could probably turn it into a luxury. Like, what have you seen is the kind of the next best step for someone? Again, we understand situation can change, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts are really is to start where you're at and really understand the numbers. I'm a numbers girl, right?
Yeah.
And so I have seen deals where purchasing has been a little bit too expensive to get into for certain individuals, but those same individuals in different markets, purchasing may be, a great way to get in, especially if the individual can leverage like a 10% down loan.
Yeah.
So my go-to is always to purchase, but there are scenarios where arbitrage is going to be a great way to start. There are scenarios where co-hosting is also going to be a great way to start. So starting where you are is really important, but understanding your numbers. So I don't want to see someone going into arbitrage for 40 or 50K when I'm looking at it from the perspective of, oh my goodness, you could have purchased and utilized that as a down payment. Right. And so I have seen that multiple times where, the revenue that they have saved up could be utilized as a down payment on a property. And instead they're leveraging arbitrage. So to build that generational wealth, I feel as though purchasing is absolutely the key. I may be wrong. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but from what I've seen, having owned something especially real estate, right, is really, really the key to generational wealth. When you are in an arbitrage scenario, you are, hopefully you vetted that relationship with that landlord or that REIT or whoever you're dealing with, but that relationship could be a little bit, I would say, volatile sometimes, right? If that, individual who's in charge of that property, if that landlord changes or if their mind changes, you lack that control. And so maybe it's me being a control freak, Ruben. I like to have control over everything, so maybe it's me being a control freak. I prefer my owned properties. I prefer owning properties more so than any of the other strategies, for sure.
Yeah.
However, I was at one point with my DTI when it was tapped out. I was like, okay, I need to do another deal. Well, arbitrage made the most sense for that season of life. So I went into arbitrage. And then when I get a lot of investors who see what I'm doing and they're they're like, oh, can you show me how to do it too? And I say, to them, yeah, you can do it with this property or that property. And then they say to me, oh, well, I don't have the time. And I already have my systems in place. I have onboarded some properties as a co-host for those, investors that I know, like, and trust and love, because it's going to have to be a personality match as well. So understand who, with the type of investor you want to work with too, someone who, has that synergy with you. It could be a great, great thing. So for me, it's start where you're at, whatever your budget is. If you can find something to purchase, I would start there. But if your budget does not allow you to purchase at this time, arbitrage is such a powerful cash flow move. It is not even, it's incredible. You can really start, with a smaller budget for sure. However, if your budget is even smaller and you want to get that experience as well as, create a revenue stream for yourself, co-hosting is definitely a way to do it. You would need to make sure that the, investor is someone who understands what it is that you're doing. There's some synergy there, and they're willing to give you that chance because, the credibility is going to be the test there. You may not have a lot of money, but you need to have a lot of credibility when it comes to being a co-host.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. And I love what you said about it's true, isn't it? Like, making sure you love the people you're co-hosting with, because essentially it's a partnership, and you don't want it to turn into a headache of like hey, what's going on with the calendar, or like it's just like no, like let me stay in my lane and you stay in yours, just like any partnership. It's a business. You talked about,
and that's what I love about your lab, by the way, Ruben. We're giving them the truth. It's not just butterflies and roses. We're not going to sugarcoat it. There's that micromanaging type of landlord. There's that micromanaging type of investor. If you're not that type of person who can do well in that situation, just be very mindful of those conversations in the very beginning, because you will save yourself a lot of heartache and pain if you're really able to streamline that process of vetting out the investor. Not all deals are good deals, right?
or relationships, that is. And sometimes you got to vet them along the way as well, right? Just like any relationship, be like, hey, are we still on the same page? Are we in alignment here? Speaking from experience, of course. You said something interesting though, because this is something that's come up a few times here in the lab about, the 40,000 to 50,000. I think this is a great example for someone who's listening, who's like, oh my gosh, like now I'm like, stuck in kind of like, what is it, a fork in the road, right? Where I don't know if I should actually take that money and put it, as an investment, which I love, by the way, love to own, versus using it as a tool to scale faster. Now, you said your numbers, gal. So let's talk about that, because I had a gentleman who came into the lab, and actually no, it was in a mastermind. And he said something like, for rental arbitrage in my markets, it's got at least cash flow for 2K, right? 2K minimum, right? And I was like, oh, I'm good. That's a good baseline. That's almost like that whole 1% rule thing, right? In your case, though, when someone is making that decision, the 40K versus 50K, is there a rule of thumb that you feel that in your luxury market, or luxury niche, I should say, not market, because it's a niche of yours that you control, that you own, that you're like, Ruben, if you're going to spend $500,000 on a home, 500K, you at least, cash on cash return has to be X, or you at least need to be clearing 5K in profit, not gross. Like, is there anything like that, metrics that we could maybe take home, since you look at a lot of numbers, that you feel, again, I don't want us to say that Rachel's going to giving you this hard rule, but you said, no, it's kind of like for context reasons, as to maybe some kind of like baselines that make sense to you that you want to share in the lab with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I know that the, economy has changed. The valuations of home prices has changed. Okay. So I would say my rules of thumb has adjusted, but typically before all of the changes in the home valuations, I was looking for a 50% cash on cash return. That's 50% cash on cash return.
That's crazy.
And that's what I was getting, right? And so, for instance, purchased a home for $460K, and it's the one that's featured on Netflix. It was renting as a long-term rental for $1,800 a month. put in $30,000 worth of lipstick into it, flattened ceilings, removed carpeting, hard floors, about 30K, not too bad at all. And when I turned on, and talk about automation tools, when I turned on the automation tool, Price Labs, I actually thought it was broken. And I had, I had the warnings before. Everyone who I knew was utilizing the tool, they say you have to train the algorithm. It's gonna, underprice you, or it's not gonna quite sync correctly. But once you train it with the base rate that you're willing to expect, and so on and so forth, it'll calibrate. Turned on the algorithm, and it priced my property over the course of 30 days. Because I had a minimum night stay for 30 days to start out, because we were still ironing out some kinks, for 28K. And I said, oh, this is what they were telling me, it's broken. 15 minutes in, before I could turn it off and recalibrate, it got booked that month for 28K. Next month, it was booked for 15K. Next month, it was booked for 21K, then 22K. And that's when I took a step back and had to reevaluate my life.
Hold on. At first I thought, I'm like, you said 28K. I'm like, okay, a quarter, or what's going on? So, are these long-term bookings, or are they cumulative?
So this was actually a 30 night stay that someone had booked for 28K. And then that's when we got an insurance company reached out afterwards, the insurance clients, and then they ended up booking at 21K for months and months and months.
When you say insurance clients, I'm sorry, are those like a corporate?
Okay, so let me break this down for you a little bit, because this is actually an avatar that we serve in the suburban areas. So say, for instance, a family is displaced from their home due to some type of, fire or a flood or some major issue with the home, and the home is inhabitable. In this particular neighborhood, the homes are a little bit higher cost of living, nicer homes. The insurance, whether it's Allstate or State Farm or Farmers Bureau or Travelers, they need to place this family in a like type of home, a similar home. And they would find me on the platforms and book this property for these larger families who are displaced from their home.
No kidding.
No
I've never
kidding.
heard of that. I've never heard of that. That's amazing.
Okay, yeah. So this is my area of expertise. This is definitely my area of expertise. When I am not in the vacation rental markets, I leverage the insurance clients. And so these platforms, and we're in the lab, so let's talk about it. So when the family member, sometimes I'm contacted directly by the insurance, sometimes I'm contacted by the family member. And so when they reach out to me, off of the platform, say, hey, my house just went through a fire. We're a family of 6, or we're a family of 10. We're staying in a hotel. Can you imagine a family of 10 cooking in a hotel, right? And so they're looking for a place. Where else are they going to go? They can't place them in an apartment, right? A corporate apartment per se. When you have a lot of kids, everyone needs to kind of be under one roof, so to speak. And so these homes, these larger homes, my 5 to 8 bedroom homes, are the only properties per se in the market that could house this type of, avatar. And so I am one of the prime, I'm the top of my markets, prime property, prime listing for this avatar. Usually an executive family, dad's a professor at the university, mom is at the hospital, she works there. And so larger home, big family, but their home burnt down. And it's incredible how many homes are burnt, keep burning down. It's kind of random and strange, but we're housing guests like that even today. And
are you putting that, Rachel, if you don't mind me asking, are you putting that in like the listings copy? Like, how are you making it? Obviously over time now you've built the relationship, but initially was it you kind of stumbled upon it, or then after you got that insurance, did you kind of cater the copy a little bit more towards that kind of avatar?
Yeah, I catered it after the fact to that avatar, but initially it was a heads to beds play. They stumbled upon it because they needed a place that could house as many heads as possible. And so that's how we stumbled upon it. So they reached out to me and I would ask questions like, wait a minute, what are you asking? And it was all very strange initially. I was like, what do you need? So insurance, what's going on here? And so the more I communicated with them, and we all know that there is a delay in renovations and repairs, there's a delay in the workforce. So they typically book for 1 month and they stay 7 months, a year at that insane rate. So spilling the tea in the lab today, they stay several months at that rate. And so here's what I learned about insurance companies. Typically, when you have a really good insurance policy, your short-term rental allowance is 25% of the home's value. Numbers, girl. Let's do that real quick. Your short-term rental allowance is 25% of the home's value, and that needs to be spread out over a year, and you can claim that multiple times throughout the life of that insurance. So unfortunately, if my home today burnt down, my short-term rental allowance, if my home is worth 400,000, my allowance is 100,000.
Wow.
And I have a year to spend that, right? And so sometimes they're with us for 7 months and I have 7 months to spend that. So divide 100,000 by 7, right? That is my rate. So when, and I know this now, but when individuals call me, they, and I'm saying, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, your whole house burned down. No, half of it. I was like, oh my gosh, it sounds like a big house. How big was the house? That's part of me fishing to get an idea based on the square footage. If they tell me the square footage, I can kind of guess how much the house is worth. And these are $700,000 homes, $800,000 homes. Wow. And then I reverse engineer and I figure out what the allowance is. And then, oh, you have 3 dogs. So the next question is, I call all of the boarding dog places. How much would it cost per month to board 3 dogs?
Wow.
We're breaking out the beakers and the test tubes at the lab today.
Yeah, no, you're rolling up the sleeves.
Yeah. Okay. And that's part of the conversation I have with the housing agent, because the agent is going to advocate, of course, for the insurance. They want to, provide you, the lowest possible, and you can then negotiate. You're not going to go to the top of the market. You say, no, I'm charging this because, I know that it's going to cost this amount to, we have 3 dogs. It's going to be, but what their allowance is in the back of your mind, and you want to get to as close to that as possible.
Yeah. And this is the direct, at this point, you're doing direct bookings, and this is why you're negotiating a price. It's not like they're able to just go through your listing through an OTA and book it themselves, right?
Well, initially they can, and
that's how they discover you.
They discover you through the OTA, and that first month's booking is through the OTA, right? And they're only booking. They say we only need it for 1 month. They always say that. It's never 1 month. It has never been 1 month. And so the follow-up bookings are direct bookings. And so you want to negotiate a price that is fair for you, a nice healthy price is fair for you. And you let them know that you'll keep it throughout, because not only that, say your peak seasons are in July, you don't want to miss out on your peak seasons. So go a little higher so that even during the peak seasons, you can account for it. So at first we started a little bit low. When it came to the peak seasons, we had agreed to keep it at that rate, and then we missed out. So I don't want any of your members here in the lab, any of the lab coats, to miss out on your peak seasons. And so definitely account for what your peak seasons are going to be to make sure you can capture that on a month-to-month basis as well.
Love that. Now, tactically, if I'm and I know this because we have one property that's close to a hospital and etc. So if I'm trying to cater the copy towards an avatar, and again, this is news to me as well from the insurance perspective. So it's just lovely that you shared that with us. What are some of the key words or areas is there on the listing where I can actually really start to mold down that niche, which is honestly how we open up this podcast. How can I really cater to those people? Is it the title in itself? Is it in the description? Is it some photos? Like where do we cater to them?
So these individuals are looking for homes that will emulate their home situation. So of course, if in the photos you can show that the kitchen is fully stocked, it has, quality kitchen, cooking tools, all of your small appliances, all of, the coffee maker, just bring your luggage or bring a backpack. We have you covered, right? And that's some of what we say in the copy. Just bring your all you need is your luggage. All you need is the clothes on your back. Just come. We have you covered. And that's a little bit of the copy. Part of the copy also is we love catering to those who are displaced from their homes. If you're looking for a home away from home, if you need temporary housing as your home is getting repaired, that part of that is a part of the copy as well. Part of the public responses to our guests. So say a guest booked with us through this mechanism and they leave a comment saying, Rachel, thank you so much for hosting us, right? We absolutely love the way you worked with us, and you want to go extra empathetic, right? Some of these people, you're meeting them on the worst day of their lives. Imagine your house burning down. So it's probably the worst. So you want to really roll out the red carpet and go extra. And every time they, rebook, if they're booking through the OTA, if they have multiple, they will have, the comments in their review about your property. And that's your opportunity to say, Miranda, you were such a pleasure to host. As you know, we love catering to families who are displaced from their home. We're always willing to work with them and extend their stay as needed, because we know currently it's difficult to get, renovations done in a timely manner. We've got, that is your marketing right there. That's free marketing.
Oh my
right?
gosh. I really want to make sure you guys listen to that, because there was a hack that Mark, shout out to Mark Boosley. Mark Boosley, Mark Simpson. That's a good branding right there.
That is right there, Mark
called him
Boosley.
Mark Boosley.
And I didn't flinch. I was like, yep, Mark Boosley.
Yeah, Mark Boosley. Wait, I need that. Called Ruben Invested. Jeez. That's great branding. Shout out to you, Mark. Mark Simpson, we've had him in the lab as well. And one of the key exercises that was really key that he had in his book was to do a control find in your comments and all your reviews and see what keywords pop up the most. And you'd be surprised. Ours was communication and spacious and clean. So guess what we put in our listings? Named spacious, clean. And it literally just changed like this. And I was like, wow. Rachel came into the lab, is gonna just double up on that. Go and use the reply as a way to not only showcase and even extract more of the value that you just gave. Not only are they going to do it naturally because you over delivered and rolled out the red carpet using the carpet SOPs by your team. See, I'm bringing this full circle. So then you can actually respond to that and give the opportunity to have that show so that others who are in a similar situation literally just gravitate towards you, because like, oh, she can solve my problem, or this team can solve my problem, because as we know, it's bigger than Rachel at this point. And oh my goodness, that is so good. Girl, we gotta save some for next time. We're going overtime here. I can't help myself. Rachel, this is great. I mean, so we talked about so many things. I listen in the lab, I'm taking notes, guys. If you think that I preach what I practice what I preach, I have notes galore here. And I just want to bring this full circle, because I do want to be mindful of Rachel's time, and there's going to be so many more opportunities for us to, huddle up in the lab together, or in person, and etc. So I can't wait for that. I'm so stuck because I have so much more to ask you, and I can't. But we'll save for another one. You talked about, I remember you quoting, because this echoed with me. I listen very carefully when you speak, because you always have some great energy and some great resources that comes with that energy. And you said something very key, that if you could only have one tool under your tool belt with all that we talked about, it would be your pricing tool. Yeah. Do you still feel that this is true today, where you stand? Again, 2 years later after you started, and just to again level set again, I want to really bring home, you've had properties bringing you more than 6 figures of income in a month. You have more than 18 luxury short-term rentals. You're at a space where that could be anywhere from like $700 to $1,500 a night, to even more if you're in the ultra luxury ultra luxury short-term rental. So when you look at all that and someone sees like the trajectory that you've done so quickly, and again with the right tools and putting the right people in the places, etc. Do you still feel that that's true? And if so, why? And what should we be looking out for as again luxury short-term rental hosts or hosts looking to transition? Why the pricing?
Yeah, so for me, that is still the most important, honestly. I do believe the channel manager is very important also. So if you'd permit me to have two, it would be those two.
Absolutely.
Because the channel manager, what it helps to do, it helps you to be visible in at least two different online travel agencies, two different OTAs, Airbnb and Vrbo, and it almost seamlessly deconflicts the calendar. So you can have both listings up and running. And if someone books on one listing, then it automatically blocks those dates on the listing that is on the opposing, so to speak, OTA. And so that's really important, because the worst thing that can occur is two guests booking at the same time for the same property, and then they show up, right? So it's really important to have the visibility on both OTAs, and then a tool that will deconflict those calendars. So that's why I love the channel manager, to kind of separate that out. And it also has other uses with the automation and so on and so forth. But the pricing, I kid you not, there is no amount of hours in the day that there's not enough amount of hours in the day to sit and to really evaluate what is going on in your current local market. So if there's an event that is occurring, well, the pricing needs to fluctuate to reflect that. If the calendar is open these 2 or 3 days, well, we need to either go up or go down depending on the strategy that we're utilizing. Is it last man standing strategy or first to book strategy? If they're, if the occupancy of the local hotels drop all the way, down, then something's happening. I need to, increase my prices. Or if my competitors, my other short-term rental operators, their occupancy is dropping, I need to look at that. And so to sit around and to review that, it would take me 24 hours a day. And to have an AI tool that's able to do that for me, and then to push the pricing onto my listings on the OTA, I mean, that is amazing. And of course, it does require some supervision. You want, at least on a weekly basis, take a look and monitor that. But to do that manually, that is not that is not going to be something feasible. Although I know there are teams who do that manually for hotels, right? Wow. So what's great about the dynamic pricing tool is that they leverage the hotel rates based on those teams that are pricing those hotels. And those hotels have contracts with the major event and meeting planning conferences. So they know ahead of time, these are the dates that these conferences are happening. As soon as those rates, publish at those hotels, my AI on my dynamic pricing tools knows something's up. So they will price me accordingly. Because here's the deal. And I know we didn't go into my past. I'm a little girl from Haiti. And when I bought this property, this was like the biggest property that we'd purchased at that point. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great to get this $1,800 a month property and turn it into a $5,000 a month? And then I monitored the market. I was like, oh my gosh, what if I priced it for $8,000 a month? And then I said, well, one day when I grow up, I may price it for $10,000. And that is the extent my mind went. But then I thought to myself, who are these people who would book for $10,000 a month? Ruben, that's the extent of my mind. $10,000 to me per month was so insane. This was two years ago, a year and a half ago. $10,000 a month was so insane that, I was willing to start at $8,000. That is my mind. That is my own self-limiting belief. When I threw on the dynamic pricing tool with no emotions, that thing put it for $28,000 a month. Do you understand what I'm
That's
talking
crazy.
about there. Do you understand? Like my
Yeah.
mind said 10,000 would be insane. The pricing tool with no emotions. The pricing tool isn't from Haiti. It doesn't have
Yeah.
any hangups. It
Data.
wasn't raised, you know, it just did the numbers based on the market
Yeah.
without bias, without prejudice.
Yeah.
And had I not used that pricing tool, I would be leaving money on the table. And I know there are other competitors out there. There are other tools that have a little bit of a better interface, a little bit of a gooier feel. I'm not changing anything. I am not changing that tool because for me, that blew everything out of it. So it made me even think from a mindset perspective, where else in my life
Am I
am
doing
I?
in your you're limiting yourself to based on your beliefs. I think about that all the time. And I had that paradigm shift after one of my coaches, it was a high ticket coach, was like, um, just completely changed my mind about how I saw the perceived value of what things are, and you do not ever want to put those in front of your own limiting beliefs of what you think your perceived values are, because the person on the other side is going to see the same limitations, right? It's about what is
Absolutely.
someone willing to pay and what are their pain points that they're trying to solve. And sometimes there
Absolutely.
is literally no price cap on that if the pain point is big enough, which you've highlighted in this episode. It's unbelievable. Like that, what you said is so important. And it's actually almost that much more important to have something that will check you, kind of like a coach or an AI that's going to say, you know what, forget your beliefs, Rachel. Let's go with the data,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
numbers rule. Wow. Talk about bringing full circle. No, I love that you said that. And that was so I really appreciate you saying that, because you know, I had limiting beliefs about the short-term rental space, right? I started listening to Bigger Pockets, it's long-term house hacking, etc. We
Yeah.
didn't really have a go-to, not that we should. This is why this is experiment, right? You should test it out. And then when I tested out short-term rentals, I realized, okay, this is why it works. Is in my mind, I thought, well, why would I have, spotty occupancy when I could have full occupancy with long-term rental? Well, guess
Yeah.
what? That was a limiting belief in my head. The numbers are in the data that shows that, well, if you can get 3 to 4 times what a long-term rental rent would be, you don't even need to be 100% occupied.
No.
And that was like a poof moment. So let's go. This is a nice kind of segue as we exit, because I would listen, Rachel, you're so resourceful. I would keep you in this lab forever. I would. But
I'm having
I
fun.
need
Oh
to
my
earn
gosh.
that. I need to earn that. I'll
No,
earn a
you've
marathon
earned
with
it.
you. No,
You've
this is
earned
crazy.
it.
I mean, you've over delivered. But I
Oh,
gotta ask you, if someone right now is just like, because we talk about this in one of my other masterminds, but like, just turn on that price. Now, you said something very key, right? Like, you can't just turn on. I'm like, you know what? Listening to this episode, if what you got from this is like, let me just 10x my price and keep everything the same and be average, that's not gonna work, right? But what I'm hearing is, let me really truly extract from and offer as much as I can give to somebody, another person, another human being's experience within my home. And I'm kind of giving you a little bit of snippet of what you're going to hear from hospitable hosts is, how can you turn a house into a home, right? So with all the data that you have, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm kind of drilling fire around, because I know we got to wrap up the lab. The lab is coming to a close. If someone is listening and they're thinking, okay, what are some things in my top of my mind that I can, with an existing asset that I have, that can really, jump into luxury and create that experience, create the 3 C's that you talked about. Like, I know communication, I know the connection, I know the convenience. What are some things that come top of mind that people really need to double down on with respect to where the marketplace is right now? And then what are some biggest maybe misconceptions that maybe you don't even need, that you think you need? That would be super helpful to close this one out. What you got for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we want to talk about tangibles, one that I didn't highlight was definitely a king size bed. Honestly, if you can squeak in a king size bed into a property, a king size bed is actually the default luxury travel bed. Imagine that guest spreading out like a king or queen that they are. Yeah, absolutely. So a king size bed is definitely default luxury travel bed. One thing you cannot skimp on also, and this I pegged it as luxury, but it's no longer luxury, guys. Fast Wi-Fi. Do not skimp on the Wi-Fi. Fast Wi-Fi. That is a must, whether they're a luxury traveler or not, because we have a lot of digital nomads who can work and play anywhere. And so having slow Wi-Fi really is a buzzkill. Like talk about a mood, right? Changing the whole mood when they have to
Yeah.
wait
Oh
for
my
dial-up.
gosh.
It just changes their entire mood. So
Absolutely.
for sure, those are again, I really want to specialize in low hanging fruit. I mentioned a little bit earlier, anything that touches the guest's skin has to feel comfortable, has to feel soft, and having something local for them to enjoy. If it's a local snack, or if you have a local recipe that you can provide some of the dry ingredients and they can throw it in a crock pot so that they can have an authentic experience. It shouldn't cost more than 10-15 bucks to put something together, a little local package, and you put that together with the little instructions printed out really cute on a placard. And all of a sudden, if you're in New Orleans, they have, some kind of little gumbo recipe, something local to make them feel like they're living the life, and they're living and experiencing an authentic stay. So for sure, those are some small things that you can definitely add to the property to level it up, outside of some of the things we spoke about a little bit earlier. And honestly, all of the other things can potentially be noise. All of the other things can potentially be noise, especially when you understand who it is that you're serving. So if you're serving, for instance, my insurance clients, those who are displaced from their home, they're looking for somewhere that they can feel safe, they can feel at home. The kitchen, has all the amenities that they need to make meals, to recreate a normal type of life for them and their kids during that time, during their stay. So they're definitely a different avatar. But if you're catering to executives, just being very mindful of the things they're asking for and partnering with local vendors to help provide it. So if there's a top local chef in that area, go ahead and make sure that you have a direct line to them. Say, hey, I have a VIP guest that's coming into this area, or that may be coming in. I want to make sure that I understand what your structure is. I understand what your schedule is. Can you come and provide some meals on site? What would that look like? And then you continue to have those conversations until you find those top rated chefs and top rated pilots, those that could definitely accommodate. Another thing, I was speaking with Mike Shogren. I know he's a good friend of yours as well. He launched an amazing, incredible property. And so one thing is, when he was telling me that he's having, VIP guests coming, he had a celebrity come. I said, okay, you need to create a charcuterie tray, an amazing charcuterie tray with your hashtag
charcuterie board. I know Mike struggles to say
charcuterie.
this, so we're here saying it for you. I'm French, so I can help you guys out. Charcuterie.
Charcuterie, bien sûr, mon
Bien
frère. I didn't know you
sûr,
were
mon
French.
frère.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we need to talk about that later too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, charcuterie board where you can definitely leverage your hashtags there. And so if that influencer, if that celebrity
Yeah.
enjoys that charcuterie, they can hashtag your property, hashtag thanks so and so for
Yeah.
providing this for me. And then you can start to create that online presence,
Oh wow, that's cool.
utilizing those hashtags, have your hashtag placard throughout. And so those are some things that are extras, but definitely were worth it. And if you are pricing correctly, and again, like you said a little bit earlier, anywhere from 700 to 1800 a night, that's the price point for luxury stays. Ultra luxury is even more than that. There is some wiggle room in the budget to make some of those things happen.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. As you were speaking, I'm thinking like, because I just rented a Turo when I was in Miami, and I know a guy who does it, and I was speaking to guy, because I always do that, guys. Like I'll speak with someone and be like, wait, tell me more about it. And it just occurred to me that thinking about leveraging other vendors, is that something you've thought of having like a Turo, like a nice, really nice car with the home? Like I haven't heard anybody do that. Maybe we're spitting some ingredients here in the lab. Have you heard of it or anything like
Yeah,
that?
so we do have
Yeah.
a car rental
There
for
you
one of the
go.
homes. So
Wouldn't
it's
put
a
it past me. Of course you do.
I know. So we don't have it listed on Turo, but we have, we utilize another process for that car rental. So if you do have a luxury home, you do want that car rental to kind of match the home. So, I'm a Toyota Camry girl. That's okay. But for the home, we're going to put an Audi Q7, right? We want the home to match
To match, yeah.
the vehicle. So if it's a
Yeah.
luxury home, you do want to put a little bit more of a high-end vehicle for rental in that property. So one of
Yeah.
our one of the properties have an airplane hangar, so we spoke about planes and pilots, but we haven't spoken about vehicles. So vehicle, Turo is definitely, I think, a great tool to leverage as well with your home
Yeah.
if you're able to secure some vehicles. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and the biggest misconceptions, I didn't hear you say, pool, fire pit, etc. Is that because those are misconceptions and because you don't have to have all those things to make it a luxury, or like, is there anything that would make your misconceptions list of like, you know, it is a big misconception. You don't need these things. Is there anything that comes to mind?
It's going to be very market specific because some
Mm,
markets, a pool is an absolute must, but not in all
yeah.
markets, right? And
Mm,
so understanding the data again, what is the most searched for amenity in a market? Sometimes it's pet friendliness. It's not even a pool. Okay. So if your competitors are not, utilizing pools, or if that's not a big deal in your particular market, I wouldn't necessarily go all in on it. It definitely is a plus if you can swing it, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker if a property doesn't have it. So understand what your market is looking for. Understand what is the highest search for amenity in those markets. So hot tubs are phenomenal in some markets, but not in others. Like the beach markets, you're not going to find hot tubs at the properties unless it's like a condo property where there's a hot tub there and everyone's using that one hot tub. And
yeah.
so just understand what amenities are sought after for that market. So pools, hot tubs, pools are going to be one of the high ticket,
Yeah.
amenity. You definitely want to understand what the market is looking for. Some things that you may not see in the market that we have implemented in some of our properties are Peloton machines,
Mm,
the bike and the tread Pelotons, so
yeah.
how do you peacock, how do you make yourself stand out from the crowd, right? If you
Yeah.
add something like that, and I do charge a lot, but I'm always looking for ways to pile on the value. So what is
Yeah.
it that my, travelers are looking for? If I'm hosting a lot of executives, movie executives who are the executive producer of certain movies I'm not allowed to speak about, we have standing desks with the ring light, at those property, like the hydraulic standing desk, really nice
Wow.
72-inch bamboo cup, so it's understanding who that guest is. Remember, I said a little bit earlier, is it the insurance families? Those families, they just want a place to stay. Even though they're
Wow.
paying you premium prices, not them personally, but the insurance is paying you premium prices. But the executives are looking for a little bit more of an experience. So tailoring the property to your avatar, who it is that you're serving, and understanding who is going to be utilizing your property is going to definitely be key to the setup, to the amenities that you're willing to offer. So there are a lot of things that are misconceptions, but understanding what's important to those who are traveling to that market is key. And we spoke a little bit about the public responses and the reviews.
Yeah.
You can look at other people's listings and see, hey, everyone's complaining there wasn't a pool here. Then that tells you something, right? I inform myself as I'm breaking into a new market based on what guests are loving, and especially more so based on what guests are hating. When the guests complain, I take note. This is my bread and butter. This is how I curate a property and experience that is top of market, because I identify what are their biggest pet peeves, what are their biggest pain points, and I resolve them.
Well, Rachel, I don't know. If you're listening to this, there should be zero pain points on the other side, because this is, I mean, I'm talking about, you talk about over delivering. This is what Rachel does and what your team does. And you're a true, I always say the person is a true embodiment of their business, and it shows. I mean, you come here, you're not holding back on any gems. You're rolling out the red carpet for experimentation. And that comes full circle. I'll have a special little something for you off the air, off air, because it's just you're just the greatest. So Rachel, listen, I want to offer you, I want to make sure our audience taps into what you're doing. And first of all, there's so many exciting things that are coming up, but I want to make sure that they have a chance to tap into some of your resources. And I know when we spoke just before getting online, I'm like, Rachel, you're doing so many things, girl. How can I make sure that I return the favor and send people your way? And one of the things you told me about that I need to even check on myself, number one, is that article that you talked about in Bigger Pockets, but number two, most importantly, is that 75gems.com. Is that where it is?
Yep.
And you have this. Why don't you tell the people what you got waiting for them? Experiment Nation. What do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone asks me, well, Rachel, where are you investing in next? Where's the best cities to invest in? So I work with some data analysts and I scrape some data for you guys. So if you go to 75gems.com, you will have access to my top 75 US cities with the highest profitability for short-term rentals. So check it out there.
Absolutely. And I think you have more than enough of a recipe to with this episode in itself. But as you guys know, it's a muscle that you got to flex. So Rachel, I believe you even have coaching as well that you're offering to folks as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you will be directed once you download that document, your top 75 US cities, you'll be directed to my Facebook group. And we're always there every week providing value, and we can connect there if anyone's interested in getting into the coaching and seeing what we're up to. We'll be enrolling some new students in the upcoming month or so. So check me out in the Facebook group as well. You can go to rachelbnb.com, rachelbnb.com, and that'll take you directly to the Facebook group also, if you're interested.
That's awesome. So you heard it here first, 75gems.com. Make sure you check that out. If you're driving, keep your hand on the wheel. We'll make sure we have that as always. And you want to make sure you get home safe. But thank you so much, Rachel, for stepping in the lab and over delivering. And we will make sure we have you back for part 2. And we got some exciting other experiments going on outside this lab that we will keep Experiment Nation in the loop with. So thank you, Rachel. And just
thank
like
you so much
that,
for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just like that, we are out. Rachel.